Hey, what's going on, folks? Today, I have an awesome episode for you. If you recall, I started doing a series just talking to people about their journey from full-time kind of corporate world to full-time sports cards, full-time hobby. And today I'm talking to Beau, who runs a shop that has over 10,000 items in it. And he sold almost 80,000 items last year. Great conversation with Beau. We talk about his journey. We talk about the things he learned. We talk about his collecting habits and everything in between. I did not get super technical on the eBay side of it because we had a separate interview over on the Breaker Culture channel. The link is in the show notes, or just click up here and you can go check out that more eBay selling oriented conversation. But you're going to love this chat. For anyone that is looking to move full-time into sports cars or just curious about what the journey looks like, this is a conversation for you. All right. Enjoy the chat. See ya. All right. What's up, Beau? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's happening?
Long time no talk.
Right?
So for those that don't know, we just recorded a separate episode over on the Breaker Culture channel, really diving into the details of selling on eBay. And we really did dive into the details. We got super technical. It was fun.
I'm a numbers guy. I love crunching those numbers and getting real nerdy with that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You and me both. How many spreadsheets do you have open at any given time?
Not too many, actually. You know, I use
Okay.
my eBay spreadsheets. And then I guess I do more than I was thinking one, but I guess I have 4 or 5 that I'm using on a regular basis.
I like how that's not many. That's when you know you have a problem. Amazing. Well, on this particular episode, we're just going to talk about your journey from hobbyist, and you're still a hobbyist, to full-time, what that really entailed. And we've been telling people stories of how they've gone full-time into sports cards, and that's been really fun. And then also just dig a little deeper in your million card project, your Cubs million card project. I'm really curious to know some more stuff about that. Before we begin, though, you have a daily show on your YouTube channel.
I do.
I'm going to be honest. I'm ashamed of myself that I haven't watched it. I'm going to be tuning in the morning now. You and I are going to be sharing coffee together. I can't wait. Link to your show will be in the notes, but everyone go give Beau a follow on his YouTube channel. 6:30 Central every morning?
7 a.m. Central.
Gosh, that's impressive. How long have you done that?
I've done over 500 episodes now. It started during the pandemic because I was working from home back when I was working, office job. And I didn't really talk to many people. My wife's here and I can talk to the dog, but a lot of my work was done via email. So I wanted to get my voice out, and I bought a Blue Yeti microphone at some point in the last couple of years. And I'm like, I need to use this. I've never even used it. And so I just started, I called it Hobby Evolution because my hobby is always, and I think our hobby is always evolving. And so I named it Hobby Evolution. And, from episode 1 to, in above 500, I've evolved from, just collecting Cubs cards to now selling cards full time. And it became, I've got an audience in the chat, of regulars, and I just drink my cup of coffee, and I usually have a topic of the day, and then the chat sometimes run it and bring up different, topics to talk about. And sometimes it's the most spontaneous shows when I don't really have a topic. The chat leads it, and those turn into the best episodes.
I can totally respect that and relate to that. We were talking offline about how some of our best episodes ever are spontaneous. It's, oh, look at this. Yeah, that's cool. I already know a lot of answers to these questions, so I'm going to try to frame this up the right way. You made the shift to full-time in October. How long were you collecting before you went full-time? And then how long were you selling before you went full-time?
So I've been a collector since, the late 80s as a kid. Took several, hiatuses throughout the years. I think the most current run, I've been back in the game since 2012.
Okay.
So 10 years. And I really started getting in around 2014 is when I moved from Illinois to Wisconsin. And that's when I started dabbling into to buying collections off Craigslist and really selling more. I mean, I was selling on eBay back in the 90s, in the late 90s. My first eBay account was 98. So I've always been on that side of things, just as kind of a, hobby money and fun money here. But 2014 is when I really started getting my feet wet deep into the hobby and buying and selling. And, it just kind of ramped up, sped up real fast over the last 6-7 years. Real fast.
So some perspective when people are like, oh, really? It ramped up really fast. Yeah, whatever. You went from 2,000 items in your store, pandemic, right?
Sure.
Early pandemic, which is nothing to sneeze at. 2,000 items in the store that's a lot of work because you're selling things. So that means you're turning over enough to where you have to replenish, to 10,000 items in your store now, with an aspiration to get it to 50,000 by October this year.
Yeah.
What the heck, man?
I just, what always held me back was eBay always had, and I've had a store for several years, but you had a premium store and it was 1,000 free items, or 1,000 free listings.
Yep.
And so I'd hit that 1,000. And then the next tier up, it's, I'm looking at the numbers. It's like, well, it's not worth the monthly subscription to list those, because I'm not going to list with a full-time job. I'm just not going to list that many items. So that always held me back. Then the pandemic happens and I'm working from home. All of a sudden, I think in April, the end of April of 2020, eBay says, we're going to give you 50,000 free listings. And I thought, I certainly have 50,000 cards I can list with my inventory at that time. And so I just started scaling up, and boom, everything is selling. I mean, I'm selling cards that I never thought I could move. And that just continued on through the pandemic. And here I am, over 10,000 active listings, and trying to keep that number going up on a daily basis.
Wow. So let's talk about what it took to convince your wife to allow you to go full-time into sports card. What was that conversation like? Was it a progressive conversation? You had been thinking about it, or was it like you woke up one morning and you said, I'm doing this?
It was definitely a transition, a gradual transition. It's always been in the back of my mind. It's always been a dream. Like, man, if I could sell card, that would be a dream. That's a dream job. I mean, selling baseball cards, like, still, I'm doing it, and it's still, to me, a dream. But as you and Mike had a conversation a week or two ago, and was talking about this very topic, selling cards full time, and Mike's answer basically mirrored my own just 1 year ago, where it would have been not just no, and I think that was Mike's exact quote, not just no, but hell no. And that's what I would have said a year ago, because I was having a lot of fun. I was making good money on eBay as a side hustle, going to card shows and just buying whatever I wanted. So I was having a good time. It's like, well, I don't want to mess with a good thing. I've got my job over here, that I really didn't like, but I was, having a good time with my side hustle. But then I had to go back to the office, and when you don't really like your job, in the line of work I was in supply chain, which, that's two words that we've heard a lot over the last year and a half. It was a daily struggle. My clients were seeing raising prices, 3x on a shipment of goods, from point A to point B. And then if you had anything to do with overseas, a lot of those shipments are stuck in the ocean, stuck at the port. So I began, disliking my job more and more. And then when I went back to the office, now I can't just take a breath of fresh air, walk out my front door, take the dog for a walk during the workday. I'm at my desk, and it just kind of all bubbles. It just simmers. And so it was not good for my mental health. And that's really when the wheels started in motion. I knew that the hobby peak had already, we'd already been past the hobby peak. Can I still make it is it still sustainable with what I do and what I sell? Can I still make a living doing this? I crunch the numbers and I'm like, I can still make this work, even though, you're not seeing the sales that you did first quarter 2020 or 2021. I can still make this work with the numbers, with the current inventory I have, and then just finding new inventory with my approach to that. So it was a couple months, and before I even approached my wife, I wrote all the numbers, all my projections. Here's the benefits from my work, my salary. Here's my my last 12 months on eBay. Here's what I project. I had it all spelled out, so I made a good case, and she was on board. And so talked to our accountant and kind of a mentor in business, gave me some tips, and October 15th, went full bore.
Dang. So I think when anybody hears that, their mind probably goes to, man, that sounds so cool. And you just talked about how you hated your job before, your mental state wasn't good. So the question I have immediately is, now that you've done it 4 months, 5 months, do you feel like what you thought your mental state was going to be selling sports cards is much better than what you were at kind of in that logistics world?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And anytime you do, even if you love your job, there's going to be days that are,
Yep.
with eBay, if you're selling cards, there can be issues with a damaged envelope, or,
Yep.
this item didn't get received, and not every customer is the same. Some, are much more pleasant than others. And so if you deal with those unpleasant, it kind of, for a moment, just kind of, this sucks.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, how I try to keep that, shake those bad, bad moments.
Yep.
I think it beats the alternative. Like, remember when I hated my job and I'm handcuffed to a desk basically for, 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I could, so this is way better than the alternative. So that's kind of how I keep my mind right, is, trying to think back of, I did my previous job 7.5 years, and it's like, 6.5 of those I disliked, and I probably should have made a move, but, timing is everything. And I wouldn't have done this 7 years ago, 6 years ago, even a year ago. So just trying to keep the mindset right.
Yeah. Well, and we mentioned this in the other conversation. We don't have to dig too much into this, but the tip that you gave to people wanting to dive into this was do it on the side for years. And you did it on the side for years, and you hustled for 7 years, and you still loved it.
Yeah.
So that's a good enough sign, right? That it'll probably still work if you can make the numbers work. Do you feel like you're at a point where you feel like the numbers will work, or are you still trying to get to where the numbers are going to work?
I'm still working towards that. My goal was 50,000 listings by the 1 year anniversary, October 15th. I'm going to fall short of that just because, I think I was a little too gung ho and not realizing the scale of, to reach that point, and based on the sell-through rate, it's, that's over 300 items per day. And I'm just a one-man show. So it's pretty difficult to get all of that done. And while you're scaling up, you're going to be selling more items. So bit off a little more than I can chew with that number. Pretty optimistic, but I still do want to hit that 50,000 listings mark. It's just going to take a little longer, and it's probably going to take, a part-time assistant to help with the shipping side of things.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this in the conversation, but I mean, you list like a madman. I mean, you have a Fujitsu scanner, you're funneling through, you have a sweet file exchange set up. If anyone wants to hear all those details, they can listen to that interview. But would you say shipping takes up most of your time, and that if you were to hire somebody, you would have somebody work on shipping for you? Is that what you would have them focus on?
Yeah, most definitely. Really? The listing part, it's, I can power through, 120 items in 1 hour, through using file exchange and using the Fujitsu scanner. So it's still, that's still, if you want to list 500 items in a day, that's 5-6 hours, worth of work.
Yeah.
But the shipping is still, it takes some time, especially if it's a quantity order where there's 20 cards from, you're pulling cards from different boxes.
Yeah.
Takes some time. What I found is helpful is if I list 200 cards, like say I listed 200 cards today, this afternoon, probably 10% of those sell within like the first 12 hours of listing. And so they're just in a pile. I haven't even organized them yet. And so I know that there's 20 cards here that I know I just pull off onto the side. So
Yeah.
that also makes things pretty streamlined.
Do you think that's because your store followers see it pop up?
Yeah.
And it's like the repeat buyers. Okay.
Yep. And I have some regular customers who will come in as soon as I do a bulk upload. It's like 10, 15 cards right off the bat. So, I see that a lot, and it's like, wow, you list 200 cards and 20 or 30 of them sell within a 24-hour period. It's kind of nice. It's almost like having an annual like a built-in annual contract where it's, you just rest on the annual contract money coming in.
Okay. So a question I have for you is, because you sell so many, I have 10,000 items and you have lots of, what's the right way to say it? Low dollar items.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, when you get a collection, is your intent to list every card, or is this stuff that is not going to sell and you're just like out going to Goodwill, or I guess say Goodwill, dumpster?
Yeah. It depends. If I buy I buy a bargain box, or several bargain boxes from a dealer at a card show.
Yeah.
If it's a $1 box, I'm probably going to take out, I'm going to take every piece of meat off that bone. Where some stuff is going to be listed right away. It might be a $5 card that's in their $1 box. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to pick out what I think I can list for, a little higher. And then I'm going to piece out the rest, where it's either going to go in like my 25-cent boxes for one of my card shows. And then the rest, maybe a bulk upload using File Exchange. And then with other collections, a bigger collection, like if I go to Goodwill and buy a pallet of cards, a lot of that stuff, if you've seen, some of those donation cards, they're beat up. They've got, little kids writing their brothers' names on it. So a lot of that's going to the trash can. And a lot of the last collection that I picked up is in boxes that I'm just going to try to dump off, real cheap, or eventually it's going to get donated to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you're running the business like this, the tax write-off is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. Tell me a little bit about the community. I mean, obviously you have your own channel, so you have that community, which is probably extremely important for you, kind of keeping your spirits high on bad days and in that regard. But the hobby itself, on the seller side, are you communicating with other sellers? Do you have a group of sellers that you kind of just you help each other out? What's that been like for you?
Absolutely. And I think that's, crowdsourcing of information, just like the chat we had on Breaker Culture. Sellers helping sellers. It's been fantastic, where I'm able to give tips on what I do. And a lot of times you may be doing something that is just second nature to you, but you don't really think it would benefit others, where it's almost like light bulb goes off and other people hear that and they're like, oh my gosh, that's genius. And everybody, I think, has their own unique way of doing things, and it can really help each other in the crowdsourcing part of the hobby community, especially when it comes to eBay sellers. We can bounce things off of each other. I have some direct message chats that kind of ongoing, like, hey, I'm seeing an uptick in, one of the things I noticed this week was an uptick in Heritage minor league lots as we approach spring training for the minor league side, and in-person autographs are really big among the Heritage minor league and pro debut sets. And they'll say, hey, I've surprisingly, football outpaced basketball this week. So we kind of share just different things we're seeing from our each individual stores, and just tweeting out. Twitter is my main social media platform, and the community there is great, where a lot of people share just different things on a wide array of different sales practices and things within the eBay platform. So it's been amazing as a crowdsource, people helping people, sellers helping sellers, and it's just been great.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you said that, because I assume that's what would be the feedback in the hobby. Because I think, especially this day and age, people get they form wrong opinions about the hobby because of the new kind of collectors base coming in, the flippers, and they think that's all that exists. And it's so not the case, right?
Right.
The core foundation of the hobby is so solid, and we all just care about helping each other. And the reality is, like, you helping me helping you, and that passing on throughout the community only helps all of us, right? It just raises the floor. The more you sell, it's probably going to lead to more people buying stuff from me. Like, that's what
Absolutely.
we need. And people don't think of it that way, but it really is the case.
Yep. Most definitely. And, a lot of, I think there's some pockets kind of look down on card sellers because, to some it's a true hobby, and there's nothing wrong with that line of thinking.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be looked down upon sellers, because if you have products, they have to be opened. And if there weren't card sellers, how would collectors who only collect, how would you obtain cards? I mean, it's a business at, every step of the way. I mean, Topps is making cards to make money, and, onto the distributors and onto the retail outlets, and even to us collectors who turn around and sell. And usually that money is going right back into the hobby. Even when we're selling cards, I'm at a card show, and, I think we mentioned this on the previous show, where, I'll make my money selling quarter cards at a card show, and I go to the guy next to me who's got a bulk box, and I'm like, hey, I'll buy that bulk box. And all of my money that I made selling cards went to the guy, right next to me.
Yeah, no, so true.
We're not buying Lambos.
Yeah, exactly.
Cards to buy Lambos.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're exactly right, man. One of the things I struggle with, and you probably deal with this a little bit too, is when I acquire collections as a collector, I sometimes have that seller's remorse. I don't want to sell something because I'm like, I want this for my collection, but you have to balance it out when I know I'm putting thousands of dollars into collections. The purpose of it was to eventually make my money back and hopefully make more money than I spent, right? How do you kind of justify keeping certain cards versus selling cards that maybe you do want to keep?
That's a great question. And for me, it's super easy because I'm a Cubs collector. I don't collect, some people may collect rookie cards and, or, just higher end cards or this and the, from that standpoint, it's kind of all over the place. For me, it's Cubs. Anything Cubs is staying in my, my collection, and any collection I buy, if there's an Ernie Banks rookie card, it's mine. It's not going to be sold. So, I have a fine line. Like it's a clear line that Cubs are mine, and I've got to make that money back on everything else. So, all the Cubs stuff that I buy from collections goes into my own collection, and, everything else is up for sale. The Mike Trout Goodwill rookie card, it's going to be sold eventually. And, so that's how I approach it. And for me, it's really easy. And I think that's because my collection, albeit a 1 million Cubs goal, is still, a defined collection, an easily defined collection.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think when you venture into going full-time in the hobby, you have to make those lines even clearer.
Absolutely.
To yourself in that. Yeah. Yours is very clear. For those that, it's kind of funny because the irony in your name is the 1 million Cubs. I think I'm thinking of your name on eBay. I don't think that's your store name, right? So people aren't.
1 Million Cubs is the store.
Oh, so there you go, right? You're not going to 1 Million Cubs to go find a Cubs card. You won't find a Cubs card.
Not a single one.
I didn't realize you literally kept every Cubs card. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Even doubles, triples, and so on. That's insane. Props to you. Do you grade stuff like your Trout? Are you grading it?
No. I have never graded a card.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through this logic. What's
I
going on?
have hundreds of slabs, but they were, all bought, at card shows or off eBay.
What? What? So what? Talk me through this. Why would you not grade? Is it just something you don't want to venture into?
Well, I'm going to eventually.
Okay.
So I've never, I'm not educated enough, and I'm not interested in educating myself on, what makes a 9, what makes a 10. I just have no interest in that. I would rather have the raw card. Now, what I am going to submit, I'm a big SGC fan, because I love the look of their slabs, especially when it comes to pre-war. I'm a big pre-war Cubs collector. And I just think PSA slabs, I think tobacco cards look really ugly in the PSA slabs, but in SGC, they look like great. A piece of art. And so I've got a stack of raw, pre-war cards that I'm building, and eventually I'll submit to SGC. But as far as like other stuff, I've thought about it. Like I've had boxes of cards that I thought I was going to submit like over time, especially within the last 2 years. I have even less interest just based on, turnaround times and pricing and all that. But yeah, when I do submit, it's basically just to get an authentication slab on some of the tobacco cards, and just to have them slabbed.
Well, I can't wait to see your video on your first submission, because the thumbnail for this video is going to be, this man has sold 80,000 cards and never graded one. Because that's got to be the craziest thing ever. Like, you got to be one of the few that's sold that many. Like, the ratio of sells to non-grading, that's spectacular. I love it. So tell me a little bit about when you came up with the idea of going all in for 1 million Cub cards. Like, when did that form?
So it was 2017.
Okay.
I had acquired at that point, my total card collection was only about 1 million. And I had 1 million just random, cards, mostly junk wax from, some small collections that I had picked up. And it's like, how do you get in 2017, the card market certainly wasn't where it's been at the last couple of years. So there's no way I'm selling, some of this stuff. And I can't throw it away. I'm a hoarder, as you can see behind me. So I'm like, how can I get rid of these cards, but get anything of value in return? And, I've got 1 million cards. I usually just pull all the Cubs from these collections, even if they're 88 Donruss, I'm setting them aside. Why don't I've done team trading in the past. Yeah. Like, I did some team trading back in the 90s in the back of Sports Collectors Digest, doing team trades through the mail. So I'm like, I've done team trades. Let's maybe that and do 1 million, a 1 Million Cubs project. And, it has kind of a nice ring to it. It's a good hook. People love numbers, and people love seeing people trying to reach those goals through, the increasing numbers. That's one thing that people just love, asking how many Cubs I'm up to. How close are you? So, and it took off like immediately. People really, really took to the project. And I mean, I'm at the point now where I just don't have time. Back in the first couple months, I was begging for trades. Like, I'm on Facebook groups and Twitter, and who's got Cubs to trade? Who's got Cubs to trade? And that's probably the genesis of scaling up my eBay store, was because it costs so much
Yeah.
just trades. I had the inventory to trade, but you're spending $3-4 sending 50 cards out. If you're doing 50 card trades to get to 1 million, do the math. That's a lot of money into the USPS. So it's like I'm gonna have to offset this postage on trades through selling cards. And I think that's kind of where it really started, was I need to sell more cards to make this worthwhile on the postage alone, trying to collect 1 million cards.
That's crazy. And then eBay throws your way 50,000 free listings, and then something triggers inside of you and you're like, I'm going all in, man. I'm doing it. Honey, I'm going. That's amazing. So at the rate you're going, you're probably a year or two away from getting to that million.
Yeah. Yep. I'm slowing down. The one thing I actually was just texting with him this afternoon. One guy who he goes and buys these huge collections, pays somebody to sort them out into teams. And so he's probably contributed close to 150,000 Cubs cards through some of these. So he reached out to me today. We're going to meet up in April. So that'll put another nice dent in the number. I'm right around 750,000 based on kind of where I've been ending each year. I was projecting it to be the middle of, like, actually right around the National next year, which conveniently is in Chicago, which is just 2 hours from me. So that would be ideal to get it wrapped up, find my Cap Anson, the 1 millionth Cubs card, and tie it into a little bow at the Chicago National in 2023.
And then you'll stop collecting Cubs cards?
No. No, I'll stop collecting mass quantity, but I'll fill in. There's a lot of pre-war stuff that I still need to pick up. I'll still collect the new stuff, but I won't be buying boxes of 87 Topps Cubs cards. I've got plenty of those.
Yeah, you and me both. I wish I had them sorted, or else I would say, hey man, you can take all my Cubs cards. Maybe we'll get to that point. Are you obviously you're full-time in selling sports cards. Are you using YouTube as a revenue stream?
No, I'm still trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark, which is a goal. My goal for 2022 is 1,000 YouTube subscribers. That's probably one of my goals that when I first started full-time, I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this. And, there's not enough time in the day to get it all done. So I'm, kind of picking and choosing the lanes. So YouTube is kind of one that, it to a point, I don't like, my videos have kind of crappy, my videos have crappy production. They're crappy production quality. But it's one thing that just trying to get more content and just to get that 1,000 subscriber, just to get to that mark. So
what are you at now?
Like 657.
Okay. Bench clear crew. Get Beau over 1,000. You can't do 500 videos and at least not monetize it a little bit.
I know.
You're providing a lot of value. We're going to help you get to 1,000. That is a done deal.
Thank you.
Guaranteed. Yeah, that's crazy. 500 something videos. My gosh. How long are your videos typically in the morning?
My morning videos typically run between 30 minutes and an hour.
So you got the watch time. You can monetize with your watch time. You can't monetize with your subscribers. That's crazy. All right. Yeah. That's 662. You said
657.
657. Okay. All right. That's awesome. Do you, we asked this in the other conversation, you don't sell on other channels and platforms? It's eBay exclusively, right? Do you do ComC or anything else?
I don't at this point. ComC is something that I am considering, just because the shipping, like I've mentioned, the shipping is a big time suck. And you don't have that with ComC. So that is definitely something that I'm going to look further into, and maybe by the second half of this year, I'll, dive into using that as well.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know from folks that are watching this, how many of you go to ComC to buy versus go to ComC to sell. I've always been a seller on ComC. I've never been a buyer on ComC. So It's quite, I know they do sell on eBay, right? So it branches
Yeah.
off and it cross sells, which is probably where they get most of their sales now. I hope that never goes away, but
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
really
That's a
good
good
success.
perk.
Yeah, that's a really good perk. No doubt. So let me ask you a question on just the state of the hobby, because you saw your peak last February where everybody saw their peak. It died down. You went full time in October. But you've been in the hobby for a long time. Kind of if you were to sum up kind of current state of the hobby, how are you feeling about the hobby right now?
I feel great. I feel the hobby is really healthy right now.
Okay.
Um, if you would have asked me last year, I would have said, "Oh man, we're in for a big crash." And I think whatever whatever happened in the last year, it was actually, I think, beneficial to the future of the hobby. I've seen a lot of people firsthand who got in during the pandemic and have stayed in. I think what we lost was a lot of the fly by night, flippers that came in, saw that they could make a quick buck. Now they can't, and they've left. But the not that they're not good, but the good collectors, and even some that have come in and sold some, or are selling, and I think are still around. It's There was enough mainstream media attention given to the hobby, and a lot of that is stuck around with celebrity endorsements. It's actually been kind of a slow month in hobby news in February, whereas January was just one
Right.
day after, the next. It's like try to top yesterday. Well, hold my beer. Here we are. So I think it's been, I think it's actually worked out really well, where I was pretty pessimistic, going into when it was at the peak. It's like, I'm going to sell when I can, because who knows what's going to happen when we come out of this. And
Yeah.
I think we've come out stronger, in the grand scheme of things. And a lot of people say, well, look at the prices. Luka Doncic cards are way off their value. But, if you go back before, exclude of 2021 and take a look at the numbers, they're still pretty strong. Most cards, their values have held up from, outside of that quarter one that we saw last year.
Yeah, no, that's great perspective. And I'm glad you set the stage with that, because you're right. If you narrow your focus to this little window, it has not been a good few months. But if you broaden it a little bit and you seek things kind of in a larger scale, that's actually not that bad at all. In fact, it is pretty
Mhm.
good still.
Yeah.
Um, and one way to measure that is with volume. Do you feel like what you've seen on the volume side is contributing to kind of your positive outlook on things? You feel like the volume has been strong, your new buyers have been strong. How is that supporting this view?
Yes and no. I've actually, I was surprised, and this could just be how crazy first quarter was. And we talked about my sell through rate last February, March. 2.3% of my inventory was turning over on a daily basis. And now it's around 0.75%, which is a little less. And I think you said the average on eBay is 1%. And that's how I ran my numbers. When I projected out last summer, I was basing my numbers on a 1% basis. So my numbers have fallen short, but I also started this in the middle of October as we head into the baseball off season, which is my strongest. Most of my volume is baseball. I'm going into November, December, which are the worst 2 months in baseball card sales. And
Yeah.
now as we start spring training, we're not, because we're in a lockout. So, it's kind of a double whammy as far as the baseball card market, because, I started this out during an off season, and then now we're still in a lockout. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at with that 0.75%. And we're in the middle of all this with baseball. I'm feeling pretty good. Hopefully we can, baseball can get a deal in place. No games are canceled. And we get back going, and then hopefully that number can creep up to the average.
Yeah, it's crazy when people hear a 0.75 sell-through rate, they're probably thinking, what the heck? You have 10,000 cards. So that's you contrast that with the amount of inventory, and that's how it works. But yeah, 2.3% is insane. Like that was, I mean, the going average for years has been around 1% on eBay. So that it just shows how much the card market kind of gained interest.
Yep.
2.5x the normal. That's amazing. All right. So I have some fun questions for you here.
All right.
So we've already talked about all the things that you do to optimize and all that stuff. You can go listen to that in the other interview. What do you put in the background when you're sorting and listening? What's your go-to? Do you podcast? Do you music? What's your choice?
A little bit of everything.
Okay.
I'll do YouTube videos, hobby. I listen to you guys, every time you put a new video out. Love your content.
Thank you.
There's a few other, YouTube hobby content producers out there that I consume. I'm a big wrestling fan, so sometimes I'll just throw on an old WWF pay-per-view from the 80s or 90s. Music, a lot of 90s music. I'm a big Pearl Jam fan, so some of that. So a little bit of wrestling podcasts. So
oh my gosh,
I kind of switch it up. I listen to a little bit of everything.
You're like this moving target. I'm trying to figure out here. Come on, Beau. Okay, so do you collect wrestling cards?
No.
Once again, you're in your lane. That's
yep.
right.
Now I do buy, like I mentioned that I went to Walmart looking for AEW cards. I enjoy opening them and looking at them, but then once I do that, I have no need, and they go in my eBay store.
All right, fair enough. Favorite sports movie of all time?
That's a tough one. Let's see. Put me on the spot. I'm gonna say this is probably not a popular answer, but I'm gonna go Field of Dreams.
Okay.
It's a classic. More baseball-ish movie. Bull Durham is a classic. Love Bull Durham. Okay. So just off the top of my head, those are two favorites.
We recently watched Rookie of the Year with the kids. That's obviously
awesome.
a Cubs movie.
Well, I have a good story about that.
Tell me.
So I go to the Cubs convention every year when they had it. They haven't had it the last couple of years, but I think it was actually the last convention they had. Gosh, what's his name? Ian Thomas Nicholas? I think that's his name. He plays Henry Rowan Gardner in Rookie of the Year. And so he was there. And so I got a picture taken with Henry Rowan Gardner, and super nice guy. Like, he's an awesome dude.
That's cool.
So later that night, I'm at the hotel bar, and a couple of my friends are in with some of the former Cubs players. So I'm sitting at a table in the hotel bar with Tim Stoddard, Ray Burris, Bob Dernier. Who else was there? There was like Larry Bittner, who he just passed away, but there was like 5 or 6 Cubs players. Tim Stoddard played the pitcher who had the big butt in the movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I had just met Henry Rowan Gardner, Ian Thomas Nicholas, just like an hour before. And it's like, I would have loved to got a dual signed baseball with those two guys on it. And it's like, I had the opportunity, but I didn't even realize at that moment that Tim Stoddard, somebody told me, they're like, I think Tim was actually talking about, he might've been like an extra in, gosh, what else? He was in another baseball movie as an extra. Okay. But I didn't know that. And he was talking about like how he shared the same agent as like maybe Kevin Costner or somebody. And that's how he got into some of the movies. And it's like, if I only would have known, that would have been a great dual sign baseball.
Wow. That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah. I don't have any cool stories like that, but that is such an iconic movie. It's both like sports fanatics and like inspirational for kids.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Dad, I want to go break my arm. It's like, no, you don't. That's not real. Trust me.
Right.
Don't try it. Don't try it. What's your binge snack when you're sorting and listing and all the fun stuff? Don't say Cheetos.
No, I'm not a chips guy.
Okay.
Probably beef jerky. I just get a bag at Costco and kind of snack on that. I do trail mix. And I think at Costco it's like walnuts and almonds, and so I get that. I enjoy that. That's a good snack.
Nice. Yeah, when you're doing cards and you're on your laptop, it's like you can't eat things that get on your hands.
Right. Yep.
Learn that. I've had to tell the kids many times, like, you're not opening these packs until you go wash after eating that. All right. So last question for you. You're having a bad day. You're lacking inspiration. What do you go to get re-inspired?
Wow. This is a good question. It varies. I guess it kind of depends on the situation. Right now it's winter, so I can't go outside. Like if it were in the summer, I'd probably take the dog for a walk. I think walks are definitely, you kind of get rejuvenated. I tend to get good ideas when I leave, sitting around cards, when you're just surrounded by, your work, whether it's cards or anything else, just to take a step, take a breath. If I feel like I'm in a funk with listing cards, or sales are down, I always look at those numbers. I always look at my numbers, and I know that, if I'm having a slow day, this isn't the finish line. The finish line is always moving, first of all.
Yeah.
But I need to continue listing 0.75% of 10,000. But if I get to 20,000, here's 0.75% of 20,000. Multiply that by, your average sale, you're doubling your money. So that's kind of how I look at things. When it comes to particularly, a slower sales day, I know that I've got the inventory, just keep listing, because, the more items you list, the more sales you're going to make. Some days are going to be, I worked in sales for the last 7.5 years, and there's going to be really crappy sales days. No matter what, what you're selling, there's going to be those days. So I guess those are two of the things that I kind of rely upon to kind of get my mind right.
You're so pragmatic. I'm impressed. And then that's what it takes. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, that's what it takes. You have to be very task oriented, regardless of the good days or the bad days.
Absolutely.
Or you'll fall into that doldrum really fast, especially in sports cards.
Yep. Definitely.
Nice. Well, man, it's been super, super good. I cannot ask more passionately for people to go follow your channel, go follow you on Twitter. You put out great stuff, and your Twitter is great. I've been following you for a long time on Twitter, but thank you for giving me time to talk to you.
Thank you. This has been awesome. This has been a lot of fun.
How we haven't met each other before is really mind-boggling to me. I'm mad at myself for not knowing you sooner. Shame on me.
Likewise.
That's right. Now we got each other's contact. Now it's on. It's on.
Definitely.
For sure. Well, cool, man. Beau, have a great week. All the links are in the show
too.
notes. Talk to you later.
See you, man.
Later.
Yeah.